evening, everybody. Welcome to Planet First Action. Thank you so much for tuning in wherever you're listening from. My name is Ryan Gordon.
And I'm Jacob Frost.
And we are your host. I am so excited. We have a packed show for you tonight. Are you ready, Jay?
I am, honestly, Ryan, I am more than ready. I am so excited for this conversation, this upcoming interview that we have with Jackie Logan, the co-founder, the chief investment officer, just the absolute leader of Raise Green, because she has such fantastic insights. I can't wait to get into it. I know before I do that, though, I have to just especially take this moment to say thank you so much to all of our new subscribers. And as you mentioned, Ryan, thank you to all of you who are listening in to the show today. Before we jump in to this conversation, and before we get to the wonderful insights that Jackie's going to share, let's just take a moment to really think about what a momentous week it has been.
It has. It feels like, the time is just flying, actually just trying to get a handle on everything that is happening over just a short period of time. And as most of you are listening in probably know what we're talking about already, it's truly history in the making. Before President Biden's announcement on Sunday, no eligible incumbent president has stepped away from seeking a second term in office since Lyndon B. Johnson in 1968.
That's crazy. It really is history in the making. And we know all of you listening in, this is definitely something that has been top of mind, has been at the forefront of conversations, and for good reason, because it is something that is going to have significant consequences for this election and the implications of the next administration. And that really isn't rhetoric. This truly is a massive moment in history. And for us, for Ryan and I, we've been talking about it with the team. It is a privilege to be a part of it, to even just be witnessing it and documenting it. And for those of you listening in, you'll likely be very aware of the sense of increasing division and polarization in this country. Whole portions of the American population have dramatic disagreements with each other, and many feel or have felt at some point over the last 10 years that the country was headed in the wrong direction.
And those of you who have been listening to this series already know, Planet First Action is not a show about politics. It is a show about the technologies and the solutions that exist today, that are being financed and built today, and as a result are setting the stage for our collective future.
And that's the thing, is that one of those unfortunate realities, one of those things that just happens, is that with everything else going on, it is very easy to lose sight of or to miss entirely those new innovations and technologies and solutions that are being designed, built, and deployed each and every day here in the U.S.
That's right. And while we aren't here to debate politics, there is no denying the significant role that the government has in addressing the challenges of climate change, both here in the U.S. and abroad. And the climate plan by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, by this current administration, is arguably the largest in the history of the world, which is something Biden shared in his remarks on Sunday. And he has put his full endorsement behind Vice President Harris.
And before we jump to our interview with today's guest, with Jackie Logan, again, the co-founder, the interim CEO, and the chief investment officer of Raise Green, someone who is just an absolutely incredible leader, it really is worth pausing for a moment to reflect on just how massive this moment is. And as we've shared in each episode, how important it is to also, while looking forward, to step back and look backward into our history so that we can learn from it and plot the best course forward. And in terms of the course forward that is in the minds of so many this week, for the Democratic Party, that course forward is behind and following Vice President Kamala Harris, who has now garnered, as of actually yesterday, enough support from enough delegates to become the Democratic presidential nominee next month.
And when you look backwards at Kamala Harris's history, she has broken through so many barriers, and she's been first at so many things. With an Indian mother and a Jamaican father, Vice President Harris was the first woman and person of color to be San Francisco District Attorney, the California Attorney General, and the first South Asian American in the U.S. Senate. And also, just by the way, the first woman and person of color to be vice president.
And as with all things, it's not something that just happened out of the blue. There are those who came before who paved the way, something that the vice president herself has acknowledged many times, including during her victory speech after she and Joe Biden won the election in 2020, when she remarked that tonight I reflect on their struggle, their determination, and the strength of their vision to see what can be unburdened by what has been, and I stand on their shoulders. And yesterday, the lead-in from the Washington Post covered that point exactly when they highlighted Shirley Chisholm, who was the first black woman elected to Congress, who on January 25th, 1972, was the first woman of color to declare her bid for the Democratic nomination for president. And Danny Lee Cooper, who literally fought so that she could register to vote in 1963, or even farther back, 170 years before VP Harris was sworn into her current office, when Sojourner Truth traveled the country advocating for equality and justice. That list goes on and on and on. You have Ida B. Wells, Amelia Boynton, Mary McLeod Bethune, Daisy Bates, so many incredible women who have come before, paving the way. And the list would certainly be incomplete if it did not include Hillary Clinton, who arguably has done more to break the glass ceiling than any woman.
That is just an amazing list. And honestly, they do not get nearly enough recognition. And where we are as a society today is a result of the leaders like that who have come before us, working to build a better present and future.
And you might be asking, why are we talking about this? I thought you just said this was a show about technology and building the future. Well, it is. And that's exactly the point, because we cannot understand our present and certainly can't understand our future if we do not understand where we come from. Our history is so important to be able to learn those lessons and apply them today. And you see, there's one more woman, or rather a whole community of women, who are deeply responsible for the advancement of women's rights and our growth as a society. And she, or really they, bring us back to the second episode of this series in part 2 of our interview with Newlab's CEO, Cam Lawrence. And by the way, if you haven't watched it, please go check it out, because it really is so incredible what he was able to share. But it brings us back to Motortown, Detroit.
That's right. Now, so can you guess it? It's Rosie the Riveter. World War II precipitated some of the most significant social transformation of the past century, and in particular with women joining the workforce like never before. But we aren't here to talk about the war effort, and that was an acute driver of change.
No, that's right. What we are talking about is the technological evolution and industrial revolution that created the environment in which that social change was possible. The industry and new technologies that were pioneered by the Detroit auto industry and by companies like Ford is what created the setting in which Rosie the Riveter could exist in the form that she did, or really that they did.
That's right. Social and technological transformation almost always go hand in hand and spur the other further forward.
That's exactly right. And bringing this all together, what are we really talking about here? We've got, on the one hand, social transformation that makes the world a more just and equitable place. Our need to learn from our history in order to not make the same mistakes. The evolution and deployment of new technologies, and as we've shared throughout this series and will continue to focus on with the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, the enablement and direct capitalization of our collective solutions by the federal government. How do all of those different ideas connect? Not only as we think about the next administration here in the U.S., but specifically as it does relate to that $27 billion that is being deployed right now by the federal government through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund.
That's right. Well, for those who listened into last week's episode with Tony Kearns from Purpose Venture Group, and like Jay said, if you haven't seen it, check it out, you might already know the answer. And that is, all those ideas bring us back to look at the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1955, the biggest public works project in the nation's history. $25 billion in capital that fundamentally and quite literally reshaped the landscape of our society. Some of that can be referenced as a clear example of what mobilization by the federal government can really achieve. Now just think of some of these stats. 25% of the nation's productivity improvement between 1950 and 1989 can be attributed to the interstate system. Coupled with the Federal Housing Administration, the Highway Act enabled huge numbers of Americans to own their home for the very first time, and by some estimates producing more than 200% ROI as it connected enterprises to internal supply chains and external trading partners via the ports.
It's incredible. And it's funny because it's like one of those things where the most important things that we have in our lives today are sometimes the most frequently overlooked or forgotten about, because how many of us honestly think about the fact that there was this huge program that built the interstate when we're driving from one state to the next? It's very easy to forget, but the importance of the interstate system and this federal act that built it cannot be overstated. The vision of President Eisenhower of a nation more secure, more productive, more American as a result of being more connected, and to not just have that vision, but the will and the coordination and the effort to realize it.
No, you're absolutely right, Jay. I mean, we just take it so for granted, and it's just an internal part of our lives. But to realize that actually it was not here until the 50s, which is just incredible to think about. But for its incredible impact and for its compelling history when perceived in the aggregate, the Federal Highway Act can also serve as an example exactly what not to do as it relates to individual communities on the ground.
That's exactly right. I mean, you couldn't say it better than award-winning journalist Pharrell Evans himself, who stated bluntly that as a result of the way the act was executed, that black neighborhoods were decimated. And it's true. The Federal Aid Highway Act had its fair share of challenges, issues, and problems. In fact, there's ample evidence of the negative impact on certain communities and in some ways how the program reinforced segregation, redlining, and structural disinvestment. And while the importance of the act cannot be overstated, an equal or even greater measure is the importance of our local communities, because at the end of the day, that's what this country is. It's not big buildings or roads or technology. Ultimately, we are a nation of people, of communities living together. And now, as we look at the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, in nominal terms, an even bigger direct investment by the federal government at $27 billion, with a focus specifically on financing the deployment of infrastructure in our communities. It's, again, looking back at history and seeing the echoes today. It should be abundantly clear for everyone why there is a need to learn about what is happening now, to engage, to learn from our history, and to look to those leaders who are working tirelessly to apply the learnings from our past.
Absolutely, because the communities, and not just awareness, but engagement and direct participation in the design and the deployment of these solutions and this infrastructure in their own neighborhoods is essential so that the errors of the past are not repeated and certainly are not exacerbated.
That's true. And this is something I know, Ryan, you and I, we talk about all the time with the team and cannot emphasize this enough for all of you listening in, that at the same time, as a collective nation, the situation that is addressed by the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund could not be more different and more important than the challenge faced by the Highway Act. Because this time the stakes are so much higher. This time it's not just about increasing our productivity or our connectivity or even our national security, though certainly it does all of those things. This time it is about saving this planet, preserving our biodiversity, protecting our environment, and in so doing, enabling ourselves, our children, and our grandchildren to be able to continue to live on this planet.
That's right, and the stakes certainly do not get any higher than that. And to achieve that, communities need to be involved. We need to be prepared because those solutions and technologies of the future are here today. And it's time to get ready for how they are going to impact our lives. How are they going to impact our jobs? What will be required of the new workforce? How will our daily lives be affected? Things are going to change. We all need to engage and learn what is happening because the future is already here, which is why we are so excited to be speaking with Jackie Logan, the co-founder and chief investment officer of Raise Green.
I know. Honestly, I'm chomping at the bit because Jackie Logan has nearly 3 decades of leadership experience in the financial markets, covering both institutional and private wealth clients, tenures at organizations like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan, as well as at new successful fintech startups. And having guided and helped facilitate the flow of private capital with such success, Jackie Logan is uniquely equipped to address this core challenge faced by so many working in the climate and sustainability space of today, which is that access to financing. And we are so grateful that Jackie Logan is bringing that expertise to Raise Green so that Raise Green can successfully achieve its mission of democratizing access to investment in climate and sustainability. And as a result, build equity among local communities in their own climate solutions. And I don't know about all of you listening in, but this is something Ryan and I and the team talk about a lot, and that is that sometimes the technical jargon can get in the way of how massively exciting the work itself is. Because Jackie Logan and the team at Raise Green are enabling nearly every single person to have ownership in the new renewable energy solutions that are being built today. They are enabling communities to directly own their own sources of energy that they rely on. They are breaking down barriers that have historically kept investment opportunities away from huge portions of the population. And Ryan, I know you and I and the team here already know this, but for those of you listening in who might not, Raise Green is doing all of that with their award-winning platform and community, which brings together those companies and initiatives that are looking for finance and the individuals and local communities who have a vested interest in supporting those organizations, enabling them to do so at a very accessible cost. Raise Green was in fact awarded Impact Investment Firm of the Year in 2022 by Environmental Finance. They are Techstars Future of Finance portfolio company, and earlier this year they just broke new records in average check size and average successful raise size, making it a top 10 platform.
That is just so exciting because really it's, as they say, democratizing access to this wonderful and huge revolution that's happening right before our face. And one of the most exciting things that Jackie and the team at Raise Green are doing as a result of this work, that they are right there on the front lines in between communities and the awardees of the $27 billion. Just like our last guest, Tony Kearns of Purpose Venture Group, providing a resource so that communities can have an active role in the solutions that are being built in their own neighborhoods.
And when you compare that to what happened to some communities as a result of the highways being built, it is absolutely night and day. Especially that idea where truly a community can actually come together. Think about this. You're listening in. You've got your neighbors down the street. You all get together and you decide you want to build a new clean energy project, a new community solar project, so that you don't have to pay as high a cost for your electricity, that you can actually have clean energy, improved quality of life. Think about that. You can actually now come together and go and do that on a platform where that was not possible before. And just think about the benefits that provides. Jackie and the Raise Green team have created something that is just so critically important to addressing this moment in time.
And that is why we are so excited to have Jackie Logan join us on stage in just a moment.
And also why it is so important to learn from our history, to learn from leaders like Jackie Logan, like Tony Kearns, leaders like Cam Lawrence. And also why it's important for each and every person, regardless of where you are in your sustainability journey, regardless of what your occupation is, to engage in this moment right now. For those of you listening in who might be thinking, well, this is not at all my area of expertise, let us just disavow you entirely of that line of reasoning, because we have this brilliant guidance from the first woman of color to make a bid for the presidency, Shirley Chisholm, who said that we must reject not only the stereotypes that others hold of us, but also the stereotypes that we hold of ourselves. Recognize, each of you listening in, recognize your agency as an individual in this moment. And for those who tuned in last week to our interview with Tony Kearns of Purpose Venture Group, remember how it ended with that idea that is so essential from President Lincoln, that public sentiment is everything. With public sentiment, nothing can fail. Without it, nothing can succeed. Consequently, he who molds public sentiment goes deeper than he who enacts statutes or pronounces decisions. He makes statutes and decisions possible or impossible to be executed.
That's right. And I think we should all just take a step back and look at this week and look ahead of us in terms of the challenges we face, but also at the solutions and the tools available and the history we have to learn from. We share the perspective of one of those women who truly paved the way, Hillary Clinton. The worst thing that can happen in a democracy, as well as in an individual's life, is to become cynical about the future and to lose hope. That is the end, and we cannot let that happen.
And here, on this stage at Newlab, the organization whose motto is that hope is a consequence of action, the word that is at the heart of this community initiative and podcast series, at the heart of Planet First Action, we encourage everyone to join us in learning from Jackie Logan and to take action. The future is here, and it is time to engage.
Absolutely. And without further ado, Jackie Logan.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you so much. Thank you. We know how busy you are. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and join us today.
It is my absolute pleasure. And what a wonderful fit to sit
Yeah.
down with two fabulous gentlemen and talk about my favorite topic.
Exactly, and especially someone who is as qualified as you are with your background in finance and the incredible work you guys are doing at Raise Green to be talking about financing climate tech and green energy solutions. We couldn't think of any way better to spend this afternoon.
Well, I always say I get up every day at Raise Green, and I just wish there were more hours in the day to get more done. I actually feel it's an honor for me to participate in the mission at Raise Green. So I feel lucky.
No, perfect. And and honestly, we're honored to have you here, speaking with us, and then also just sharing the good word, and also just pushing forward this really critical mission of what we're trying to do.
I think that wish for more hours in the day is something shared by a lot of founders and entrepreneurs, especially.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So first and foremost, welcome to Newlab and all the wonderful things that we're trying to get done. But before we really dive in and really start taking some of the serious questions, I really wanted to actually ask you first, explain a little bit more about what you do at Raise Green, kind of your position, what is your role, and then really also just share with us kind of your impressive background and how you actually bring that to bear in actually helping raise capital for these new climate and sustainability solutions.
Sure. So as you know, Raise Green is a climate investment crowdfunding portal. And we are on a mission to accelerate the clean energy transition. And while we're doing that, we're focused on democratizing access to capital and as well to investment. On Raise Green, you can invest in a project or a new climate technology company for as little as $100. And you scroll back to the early kind of mission of Raise Green, twofold. One is just the concept that we need a lot more money going directly into climate, and we need a lot more people involved. We need to give folks the opportunity to get involved in any capacity. And so with that, Raise Green and the concept of Raise Green was developed. And our original idea, and the reason why I bring it up now is because it's coming full circle with the greenhouse gas reduction funds and things like that, which we'll probably talk about soon. But the original idea of Raise Green is like, darn, there are so many commercial and industrial sized buildings. Think of a warehouse, think of a large school or things like that. And why is there not a solar array on every single building across the United States that could bear one? And why doesn't the community own it? Because these are tried and true technologies, and they are income generating and can be very profitable. And so that was the original idea behind Raise Green. So we developed some software around that, and over time realized that we had such an influx of folks interested to raise capital and interest from investors to invest in a range of types of climate solutions that we opened up our focus to being more broad. But it's coming back to us now, this original sweet spot, and we can talk about that later.
That's great. It's such a compelling kernel for the entire thing to grow from, and clearly, because you guys have flourished into an incredible platform, an incredible company, and the awards and recognition, and really the impact speaks to all of it. And I know there's a lot that's going on in the wraps. Ryan and I and the team at Gordon and Frost love to talk about and love to see the work that's being done at Raise Green. New partnerships, new exciting developments. You may not be able to share updates on all of them. Some of them are still kind of happening behind the scenes, but would love what else you can share for how the platform has grown. What are those new partnerships? How is it coming to life?
Yeah. So I would say since we spoke last, but over the last really 6 to 9 months, Raise Green has been focused in really two areas, well, three. One is business as usual, which is working with folks that are coming to Raise Green that are interested in raising capital. As I said, it could be, you can think a project, a solar array on top of a school, all the way to a new climate technology, and continuing to work with issuers that are coming to us that would like to raise capital. That is ongoing sleeve one. But there are two other sleeves that we've been very focused on. One is what we have heard from our investors. We've done a deep dive and speaking to them over the last 6 to 9 months, is what they love about Raise Green, and it enables them to invest and align their values with their investment. And so what we have learned in this journey is that there are probably multiple avenues in which folks can align their investments or their contributions with their values. So we've been very focused on looking for those avenues. And one of them that we are working on is the DAF area. And donor advised funds, there are many folks that have donor advised funds, and what they need to know is that they can use those donor advised funds not only to grant to wonderful nonprofits and things like that, but money that is sitting in your donor advised fund can actually be used for impact investments while it's waiting there. So what we have been doing is on a real tear, educating folks about the fact that this is available for you. And it is there are certain DAFs that actually just are very dedicated to unlocking freedom to invest as you like. the money that's sitting there while you're waiting to grant it. And then there are the larger ones that are more restrictive in what you can invest in, but then there are other conduits where you can donate and then invest on Raise Green. So we're very focused on self-directed IRAs is another avenue, and we're just finding that folks are very excited to do more. They just don't know what other avenues are. So we call it our Strike Zone initiative. And it's basically working with folks to unlock private capital in new and different ways to enable them to reach their goals. The other sleeve we've been very focused on, and you touched upon it, which is the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, called the acronym is GGRF. What's the world without an acronym? And that, we may get into more detail about it, but this is a large chunk of funds that the government is granting to a swath of organizations. It's $27 billion, and it is a carve-out from the Inflation Reduction Act, which in and of itself is approximately $370 billion, and the largest climate investment in the United States ever. And these funds are specifically focused on expanding and rolling out at the very local level clean energy projects that are in tried and true technologies. Think solar, think energy efficiency, think EV charging, EV infrastructure, electric school buses, these kinds of things that we know work, and that so many communities have really not had the advantage to have. And pushing down this grant capital to financial organizations who will then be able to go on, using that as seed capital, to bring in private capital to really, really explode on the local level clean energy projects to really, really make a difference. And what's super exciting is that along the lines of the Justice 40 initiative, there are requirements for this money to go into low-income and disadvantaged communities. In fact, at a minimum 40%, and at sometimes 100% of the money. So this is going to be super, super exciting, and it's going into communities that in the past probably couldn't get a project done, but now with this new capital that is going to be merged with private capital, we're going to see stuff done that never existed. So scrolling back to the Raise Green original dream, which is there really should be, solar projects on rooftops across the United States, community solar, and everybody should benefit from it because it's a win-win.
Yeah, I mean, that's just so exciting because, I mean, at the end of the day, the essence is about democratizing that capital and the access, right? I mean, that's what it's really all about. And so just speaking to that, but I'm going to ask you a little bit more of a difficult question.
Uh-oh.
Yep. So this one, I'm going to ask you to pick your favorite children, or at least speak a little bit about actually some of the companies that actually has been on your platform you've actually helped raise. Which ones would you actually want to speak a little bit about? That way they have, our audience here has a bit of an example in terms of actually some of the companies you've kind of supported. And then also, most crucially, something that I particularly am really excited about what you guys are able to do is the kind of flexibility in terms of asset classes and the different kinds of ways you actually help support companies.
Right.
So if you can speak a little bit about that, that would be fantastic.
And this is a piece of what we're focusing on now as we think about the monies going for the GGRF and the private capital that needs to come. What we're starting to hear, and by the way, this is all being unpacked as we speak. Sure. The monies have not even gone out yet. There's still all kinds of decisions that have to be made, but Raise Green is very focused on having a seat at the table so we can hear, we can understand, because what we want to do is be able to plug in capital in order to get projects done. And one of the things that we can do at Raise Green is have a lot of flexibility in the type of capital and in the type of structuring that we do. And that's the beauty of impact investing. And the community that we've developed so far and want to continue to develop. But high level, and it's been super important to get certain of our earlier issuers off the ground or trying new innovative things themselves. So in terms of, I won't say I have a favorite because we, as a regulatory matter, we have to treat all of our issuers equally. But I think there are a couple that exemplify what we're trying to accomplish here at Raise Green. So I'll start with the Connecticut Green Bank. So we have had the amazing opportunity to partner with the Connecticut Green Bank. They are the oldest and first green bank here in the United States. And their mission is to really bring clean energy and all the benefits thereof, other environmental type programs, watersheds, things like that, to the people, and to grow the green economy in the state of Connecticut. And we worked for quite a while with them to figure out, because they were very focused on how do I open up investment to everyday folks? Yeah. And it's not particularly, reachable for retail investors, for folks that don't have a lot of money, unless you're it's certainly available for institutional investors and very, very high net worth. So anyhow, worked with them, and we created the Green Liberty Notes program. And that is a quarterly program that they do on Raise Green, specifically raising capital for 0% energy efficiency loans, largely for small businesses in the state of Connecticut. And, you can imagine energy efficiency, we know how much waste that, existing buildings have, not only in terms of pollution, but, costs, et cetera. And so that's what that program is doing. And they are raising capital for it on a quarterly basis on Raise Green. And for them, it's not only raising the capital, but it's also being able to open it up and communicate to the public like what they're working on. Because it scrolls back to Raise Green's concept of getting more people involved. It is, you can get involved in a lot of different ways. And one way is to take $100 and invest in a Green Liberty note. It's a 1-year note, and I'm not recommending anything because but the concept being, it's giving folks an ability to get involved. So Connecticut Green Bank, great program, and we were very honored to receive the 2023 Financial Solutions Innovation Partner Award from them. Another issuer, which again exemplifies the potential reach for Raise Green is Block Power. We've done a few offerings for Block Power. They are a New York original based, actually Brooklyn original, based organization, fabulous organization. And what they are doing is they are very focused on energy efficiency and more, and going into urban communities, multifamily, some single family, and really, really getting into those hard retrofits for buildings and getting them done in urban communities. And so needed, because a piece of what they're doing is not only reducing energy costs, potentially, they are making the quality of life better for folks that are living in buildings. But the high level, what Raise Green can offer and the crowdfunding experience is flexible capital. The way they structure their capital raises with us is they have a certain amount of flexibility as to how and when they use the funds that are raised. When they raise capital from other organizations, albeit, they need capital from all areas, there are likely a lot of restrictions around it. And that, has, when they need to act quickly or want to have some flexible capital, that's the one thing that we can do. We can bring that in as an impact investing, ecosystem. And there, with one raise, Raise Green is able to support multiple projects because they're being grouped together in the same way for Connecticut Green Bank, multiple projects. But at the end of the day, it's down at the community level. And the last example I'll bring to light is we worked with a nonprofit called the Climate Access Fund, and they financed on Raise Green. And this was the last capital to plug in a capital stack for a solar project that is currently under construction, now that they had raised their funding in 2023, on a school in Baltimore. And this is a real model project because it is placed on a rooftop in a city, which has its restrictions and limitations. And the goal is that it's going to be a community solar project, which means it will produce solar for a lot of people. And the goal is to target 150 families, LMI, low to moderate income families, and give them a reduction on their electricity. But what was amazing about this was it was such a compilation of folks coming in to help finance this. And the last piece, the gap that they had that they needed to finance, was about $370,000 came in through impact investors on Raise Green to enable that project to get over the hump and get done. And it is one of the few currently community solar projects that is 100% LMI. So
wow.
Just the point being is, and we structured it in all different kinds of ways. It's not accruing at the beginning until the project is done because there wasn't enough money in the project, et cetera, et cetera. And it's the flexibility because it's that we can do on the platform, which is really going to, at the end of the day, be catalytic and exemplary for folks across the United States doing all kinds of interesting things.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. It's such incredible work, and that's why we're so excited to be having this conversation. I think it's also why we mentioned to the audience at the beginning that you are someone that they should absolutely know of if they have any interest whatsoever in the space, because Jackie didn't mention this, but the truth is Connecticut Green Bank, and through the work that they've been doing with Raise Green, is actually one of the models of that greenhouse gas reduction fund, of how that $20 billion is being deployed. So when you want to think about what is the financial minds, the ingenuity, and the real impact that's kind of seeded what's going on right now at a federal level, that's exactly why we want to be having this conversation right now.
And if you think about what that private capital is that needs to come in to match it, it's really, you could argue it's modeled after Raise Green because it really needs to be flexible. And so we like to feel that we're going to have a part in this. Absolutely. And so yes, exactly.
And there's actually another point too, and this is what I'd love to spend a little bit more time on, is the way that you approach impact investing at Raise Green is not just the importance of financing these ventures and these projects, but the fact that it is also democratizing access to the investment opportunity. And not just it as an investment opportunity, but truly being able to get equity and ownership at a local level for those communities. Right. That project that you just mentioned just now is a great example. For us, we'd love to just spend some more time thinking about that dual impact with you and how that comes to life. How do you see the benefits of that being realized? Do you see that in terms of repeat investment from a community? Is it reflected in the term sheets? Is it in conversation anecdotally? Sure. What does that look like?
Well, I will say just in terms of reinvestment, rule of thumb, the Connecticut Green Bank offerings, we are seeing almost 60% of the people that had invested come back and reinvest. And again, a piece of this is not just the ownership or the financial return. It is giving people a step, an easy. Obviously, one has to always do their financial research, but it's an accessible step to get involved. And I am a real believer if you get one thing, then it leads to another thing. And the point is to get, the power of individual action is to get everybody thinking about this, everybody feel that they have something they can contribute, and to get them going. Don't make it too hard. So high level, we do see reinvestment, which means that, and people are excited about it. And in the case of even the Climate Access Fund, the goal here was to raise debt capital so that this nonprofit could actually own the solar project, so that they could take advantage of what is called direct pay. And so high level, again, bringing in this use case, it was a debt investment. So the investors don't own the project per se, but their debt investment is enabling the nonprofit to actually own this project and get it done and access what's called direct pay. Direct pay is one of the amazing buckets of opportunity that is we have not even seen where that is going to go yet, because the market hasn't solved how to all the aspects around direct pay. But in essence, the Inflation Reduction Act, or just in general, folks are probably familiar that there have been incentives given by the government, in particular for solar. They have been historically called investment tax credits. Mm-hmm. Also for wind, energy efficiency, certain other, EVs, et cetera. So there have been tax advantages, and they've been critical in order to get these industries moving with enough volume so they can start to bring the costs down. But if you don't pay taxes, you can't take advantage of a tax credit. And there have been all kinds of, complicated tax equity, packages that have actually enabled today various organizations to do solar projects and not take the tax advantage themselves, but all that kinds of stuff. I won't get into the weeds. But all of that is to say is that actually tax-exempt organizations themselves have really not been able to take advantage, to actually own their own solar projects and things like that, because they couldn't directly take advantage of the tax credit. But now they can.
It's a game changer.
It's a game changer.
It's one of those things that's understated, really, in terms of the impact that it can have. To your point, It's not fully figured out yet, but it's a really.
It's opening up entirely new market.
It is opening up to tax-exempt organizations the ability to take advantage of what think if a solar project costs $1 million, you can potentially get at minimum a 30% direct cash back for that solar project. You can get, and there are additional adders now that, because of the Inflation Reduction Act, have come. If you're in an energy community, if you are, so much as U.S. Parts and employees and things like that, you can actually start to add it up. In LMI communities, you can start to add it up to 60-70% of your project is actually covered by tax incentives. So think about that. This is now, and a nonprofit now all they need to do is raise the 30% to actually create a solar project that at the end of the day they own 100%, and the 100% benefits of owning that solar project for 25, 35 years, where they're basically not paying an electricity bill. So bottom line is that this ability to now how do we work Raise Green to facilitate other organizations being able to own their own project is an area that we're focusing right now.
It's amazing, and you actually kind of jumped into one of the next areas we wanted to talk about, which is the financial engineering that enables that sort of local community ownership. And direct pay is a perfect example for that. Do you think that there is, when you say the market needs to still figure out and solve that, what that really looks like, speak for the audience, whether it's the startup founders themselves or other communities who say, oh, that's something maybe I want to get involved in. What are the remaining sort of roadblocks or instruments that need to be evolved for more to take advantage of something like direct pay?
So in its most, if you start to think of the big guys that are doing big projects, there are so many there's production risk, that all the different risk pieces that come along with a project, including one of the risks, which is related to taking an incentive from the government, which is recapture risk. So that in order for you to get that tax incentive, you have to meet certain requirements, right? So this has all been, over the last 10 years, worked by all the big guys and gals, figuring out how to make that work, because these the tax incentives themselves have been around, And big investors like J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs and all the big guys that have been in there and lawyered up, and that's all. But now when we take it out of that context and we start to the protections and the around the risks associated with a solar project, and you bring it into now it's direct pay, that has to on some level be reworked for significant dollars to start to come in and back this. But that doesn't mean there's a road early on for organizations like Raise Green to get involved and start to work on a smaller scale, flexible kind of packages that are early on with the disclosed risk associated with it, and start to get some of these projects done so people can get around the table and say, oh, well, let's tweak this, let's do this. So that is, that's kind of, ultimately it's going to have to get to where tax equity and these things that have been around for a long time so that tons of money can come in. Because remember, the municipalities now, which have not been able to take advantage of the federal tax incentive because they're tax exempt, now they can. So we're talking about municipalities across the United States that are now going to be able to own solar projects and all these kinds of things. So this is a huge market. It's just at its beginning. And Raise Green's excited to get in there early on and start to try to design some simple early on things and see if people can catalyze around it.
No, that's fantastic. And I mean, I think just thinking about it, and you've done such a great job just explaining kind of all the benefits and the myriad of ways you guys can actually just help not only democratize that overall access, but also the various kinds of projects and the ways they actually help kind of capitalize things. But the thing I think our audience specifically wants to know the most is, like, how do they actually get involved? Like, walk us through the process of actually working with you guys and actually becoming an investor.
Sure. So on the investor side, it's very easy to find us. We are raisegreen.com. And if you jump on our website, you'll see there are a handful of projects and companies up right now looking for investment. You can also have the opportunity to see some of the past issuances that have already been funded. And you can, it takes about a minute to actually open up an account on Raise Green and make your first investment. It is incredibly easy. We always advise everybody, investing on Raise Green. We're a crowdfunding platform, and therefore the offerings on our platform, there's risk. So each investor has to think about their own risk profile and whether the types of investments, and they range in risk, but high level, they are going to want to read the documents, understand the risks involved, and make a decision for themselves as to whether it's an investment for them. We also always support investors always thinking in terms of diversification. And that's true in everything you do financially, is to not have all your eggs in one basket. Et cetera, and also to you receive advice where you can to make sure you're doing the right things for yourself. But yeah, it's super easy to jump on our platform, and you know what? Honestly, you have a question, you want to chat with us at Raise Green, we're here. We love it. We love to talk to our investors through the platform, and reach out to me, Jackie at raisegreen.com, or investors at raisegreen.com. We'll get right back to you and chat with you. And on the issuer side, if anyone's looking to raise capital, just reach out to me or info@raisegreen.com, and we'll get you right into the right people and see if you're a good fit for Raise Green. Love that.
No, that's wonderful. And also, just to add on to that as well, you guys also do a lot of diligence too.
Well, that's right. We will. There's two ways to think about the diligence we do on Raise Green. One is we're a regulated entity. We are registered with the SEC. We're a member of FINRA, and we are, we're very focused in how we can facilitate the issuance of equity and debt and these are investments. This is not donations. That's something to be super clear about. and I'll just step back. Crowdfunding, you can think of it as donation-based, like a GoFundMe. You can think of it as rewards-based, like a Kickstarter. And then you can think about it as investments. And we are in the camp of investment crowdfunding. And so we're regulated like a broker-dealer, but in a very focused way. So we have an obligation to work with our issuers and our investors to make sure that what's going on our platform is compliant with the regulations. So that's our first level of diligence, and that includes things on our issuers, like we do background checks and collect various kinds of information, ensure that they file their prospectus documents about their company, which is called a Form C, and et cetera, et cetera. So that is a piece of what we are focused on. And in addition, we do some kicking of the tires of the companies that come into us. We're looking for, potential for revenue. We look at ambition. We look at the impact, et cetera, et cetera. And, our goal is to work with as many companies as we can to get them up on the platform, as long as we think that they are a good fit for Raise Green and our investor base. And a lot of time spent on that.
Yeah, for sure. So now during our last discussion, actually, we mentioned new regulations actually worked out to be a net positive for you guys. So wondering in terms of that, how actually was Raise Green actually helping drive additional impact as a result of these new regulations? And then also talk to us a little bit about kind of how your partners at Connecticut Green Bank, for example, can use these new kind of financial instruments that we've kind of talked about a little bit already to not only finance these kind of clean energy, but also address kind of more of these kind of larger kind of environmental justice issues that we talked about.
So in terms of regulations, first and foremost, Raise Green, regulation crowdfunding, which is this new regulation that we are registered to execute on, only came about in 2016. And it was really out of the Jobs Act in 2012. And the idea behind it was we need to be let's create more jobs. And as we know, the real lifeblood of this country in terms of job generation and income earning, et cetera, it's small businesses. And until 2000, so the idea behind it was, let's put some regulation out there so small to medium-sized businesses can access the capital markets, issue equity and debt to folks like bigger companies. And because if you don't have capital, you can't grow. So think of a small business, a brewery that is in a town, everybody loves it, and they want to expand. Where do they go to expand and add a new room to their brewery? Local bank, which is great, but if they want to raise capital from all the local fans that they have, they can't really do it. So come in this new regulation that was put in place in 2016, coming out of the Jobs Act, with the goal to enable to finally have a regulation to let small to medium-sized businesses raise capital and open it up to just about anybody in their community to invest in them. And it can be equity or debt. And that is what regulation crowdfunding has done. It is also, at the same time, if you look historically, until 2016, the ability to invest in private companies, which are what all these are, and private activities, was really limited to accredited investors. And as a general matter, couldn't be publicly announced. It was really had to be in a box and through special networks. And 9 out of 10 Americans are not accredited investors. So this regulation actually changed that and opened it up that anybody who's 18 years and older can come in and invest. And there are some income and net worth limitations, so that protections, if you will, for non-accredited investors. And accredited investors can invest unlimited amounts in the same way they can in other private investments, Reg D, et cetera. But open up access to just about anybody. And the means is fully online. It's required by the regulation. So thus, again, giving everybody access. So it has been an incredible opportunity to really open up capital to folks that are trying to get, develop businesses, startups, small businesses in a new way. And Raise Green's super proud of the fact, and it is not something that we specifically go after, but it is just a testament to what the opportunity of the regulation. We actually, over 50% of the capital raised on our platform to date has been for either women-led or BIPOC-led organizations. And, if you look at the venture capital world, that's closer to 5%. So, and I know Raise Green, there are other crowdfunding platforms as well that have similar kinds of numbers. So it's not just us, it really is this regulation. And so it really is opening up access to capital as well as to investment.
Yeah, it's such incredible work. And I think the audience is certainly getting a sense of why you said you wanted more hours in the day, because there is just so much incredible work that you guys are doing. And it's almost like this understated position that you sit in, because it's at this intersection point where you're doing a lot of the pioneering of the financial innovation. You're doing a lot of the translation work and education, bringing together things like donor advised funds on the one hand, with direct pay on the other hand, with also the big thing that we would love to get to next, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, and how all of that is kind of coming together and transforming private capital.
For all of you listening in, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Planet First Action, for part 1 of our interview with Jackie Logan, the co-founder and chief investment officer of Raise Green.
Thank you for being a part of the solution. Thank you for your engagement. I know Ryan and I cannot wait for part 2 with Jackie next week, as we really dive into the weeds of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. Her perspective, as we get her perspective on the upcoming election, her guidance for each of the different types of stakeholders and communities who are affected by what's happening today, and so much more.
Absolutely, that is so right. And as we always say, no matter where you are in the world, what your occupation is, where you are in your sustainability journey, we hope you learn something valuable that you can go and apply today. Despite the challenges we may face, history is being written each and every day. And as the Newlab motto goes, hope is a consequence of action.
And last but not least, please do like, share, and subscribe. Help to get the word out, to build this community. It really makes a difference. And do not hesitate to leave a comment with your questions or thoughts or ideas about what we should be covering. And be sure to check out the resources at planetfirstaction.com. And for those who we know many of you are going to be, for those of you who are interested in learning more about the incredible work that Jackie Logan and the team are doing at Raise Green, definitely head over to raisegreen.com, where you can learn more, become an investor yourself, or look for ways where you can start to raise your own capital for your own clean energy solution. Definitely go and check them out.
That's all for this week. My name is Ryan Gordon.
And I'm Jacob Frog.
And this is Planet First Action. We'll see you next Wednesday for part 2 of our interview with Jackie Logan.